We're going to talk now about trombone tone. The important thing to remember about tone is really tone comes from a combination of everything else that you're doing. The breathing you're putting into the sound, the attack you're putting on the sound, the release you're putting on the sound, the way you're phrasing. Tone is kind of subjective. The only times when you really can say for sure, hey, I've got a tone problem, is where probably enough of the other problems are coming together to create what's in effect a thoroughly wimpy effect throughout. In other words, it's really undermining your attack sound, it's undermining the content of and there's probably too much noise, and there's lack of proper air support and so forth for the meat of the tone. It may even be affecting your releases. Usually what my impression is that when you have somebody that has a poor tone, they got a bunch of other problems going on as well. Probably one of the fundamental ones would be that they're not paying attention to the nature of the phrasing, the nature of the dynamics. They're unconcerned with whether their attacks are proper, maybe even their rhythm and everything is off. So I think maybe I look at this kind of holistically, but tone to me is really the result of almost everything else that you do musically. And so either approach you might take, the approach I took when I started out on trombone was to work first on my tone quality, because I knew I had to have that down, and that I could later come on and do all of the technical things that needed to be done to create a fast playing, if I could fundamentally understand how to get a good sound on the horn. That is a pretty good approach. I think a lot of the really great players have done that, from what I've heard, just listening to people talk and so forth. But it can be taken too far. You don't want to undermine yourself and use that as an excuse for not getting to the hard work of understanding the technology or the techniques that are involved in becoming a player that is able to do things fast, rapidly. You need to understand all the things about the different keys, how the chords work, how you play the instrument, all the different styles and all this stuff. And that's the long and hard work. But again, I would commend to you that when you're playing a trombone or playing any brass instrument, there's 3 parts to each note that you're making, and really that's all that's there. Nothing else is ever going to be there. And it's like this. When you play a note, remember, you've got an attack at the beginning, you've got the meat of the note you're holding out, and you've got a release. Okay? Each of those 3 things needs to be well done. It's as simple as that. Now, that may sound totally simple, but if you think about it, a lot of what the so-called, maybe the much vaunted studio musician is doing is they're extremely reliable and doing something very, very simple like that, but always doing it right. And always is 100.0 always. And nobody probably ever makes that, but these guys are 99.9999999 as nines as far as you can see. Okay, so they don't ever stop a recording session because some note is just fracked, a simple note. You know, that's the reputation you want to get to work in a commercial situation. So, to me, when you're working on tone quality, maybe this old Harry Glantz trumpeter thing that Hal Diner gave to me is an excellent exercise. What you do is you take a note, start with a note, and you don't do it on the mouthpiece or anything like that. You just take a note. Let's take middle B flat. Doesn't have to be a long tone, so-called long tone, but it has to be long enough that you can tell I'm getting a good sound, all right? There's a release to it at the end. The release is not what, it's not cut off, choked off, wrecked in any way, shape, or form. It's a smooth and fairly quick lessening of the air support, which results in the sound shutting off in an organized manner. The front of the note has an attack of some sort. I tend to work with a little bit more attack than some other players do. Other players have a little less. I've heard some symphony players, they seem to have very little attack. Some have plenty of attack. So that's stylistic maybe, what attack you choose to put on the thing. I like mine. I think it blends pretty well with the trumpet section when they're playing trumpety sounding. I may need to shut it down and go with more of a taw attack, which will be, I think, lighter. When they're not playing so trumpety. So you keep your eyes and your ears open as to what's going on around you, and you can adapt to it. But again, fundamentally, what the glance exercise is you basically are taking the mouthpiece away from your lips, you're doing what you're going to have to do a lot in a symphony orchestra or in a studio situation, which is play a note, get it right the first time. Fundamentally by feel, just open air, you're coming in an instrument, I'm going to play an E flat now. Alright, so you can't imagine how many people have trouble orienting themselves physically to an instrument and getting an E flat out of their horn right the first time. You know, that causes problems. Now, most people get over that, but this is fundamentally an exercise you could do, particularly as a beginner and as part of a good warm-up, is to do that over and over. Can I get an E flat again? Is it going to be right? All right, take the mouthpiece away from your lips. Act as though you're just walking up to the horn for the first time. Can you get it? Can you get a high B flat first time? Now see, I blew it. That's a mistake. Yep, now I'm blowing it here. This is a challenge. It's more of a challenge even for an advanced player than you might think to do these things. Okay, we're doing high B flats now. Take the mouthpiece away each time. Okay. Now how about a low D? You can just randomly pick notes. Probably 3 or 4 is the minimum I would say go ahead and do to try to get, can you get those notes completely on their own. Let's see if I can do the low C below that. That kind of exercise will really help you with the phenomenon of just coming up to a horn, playing a note for the first time. I wouldn't devote a heck of a lot of practice time to it. If you're spending 10 minutes on doing that, that's probably more than enough. If you're spending 20 minutes, you're spending too much time on that thing. But I would say if Harry Glantz, the pretty legendary lead trumpeter of the New York Philharmonic, is willing to do that exercise, seems to think that there's merit in that exercise, I got to think that's probably a decent exercise. I think that's what Diner thought too. He's like young guy, the heavyweight new studio kid in town, and he's looking at this guy, this veteran New York Phil trumpeter, who's, God, if that guy's doing it, maybe I should try doing it. Good thinking. So I do like that exercise, even though it's kind of a strange exercise. I've not seen people doing very much, but there again, I think the nice thing about it is that it's extremely economical. If you do 5 minutes of it, that's great. Boom, wonderful. Okay, it's less than 10. Don't worry about it. You do not have to spend enormous amounts of time on each individual exercise. Part of studying a musical instrument is really effective time management. You might go from that to something else, maybe a flexibility exercise. You might go from there to running through all 12 of your scales. You might go from there to practicing some double tonguing again, doodle tonguing, circular breathing, whatever you're going to be doing. Do this, do that, do the other, do this, do that, do the other, do various styles. Be sure that you fill your practice regime with a huge variety of different things. That will make you a really great trombone player.